Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
I don't really do rest days. I think active recovery is just as good as anything. So even if it's just a swim for 30 minutes, if I had a really hard run the day before, the next day I'll maybe do like just an hour really easy. Sometimes it's not always about getting out running, it's about just getting out. And most of the time it's early mornings, 5 o'clock. In the evening, sometimes I go out as late as 9:30, even when it's dark. But yeah, that's the commitment you've got to give if you want to be the best version of yourself. When I'm training hard, I only think about the effort. That's all that's going through my mind. But when I'm running easy and I'm out for like maybe 2 or 3 hours, I put a lot to sleep during that 3-hour run.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Ricky, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hi Pete, how you doing?
I'm awesome, my friend. How you feeling?
Yeah, not too bad, to be honest. Like I've felt better, but yeah, I'm not too bad.
I was just catching up on some of your injuries. Actually, you've been a poorly puppy for a little bit, my man.
Oh, just recently, and the more we got married last month. I don't know. I probably said, didn't I? And,
Yeah, you did, man. Congratulations.
yeah, thanks. I went out for a run on the morning, and I slipped, and I thought I'd broken a bone in my foot, but just been a bad sprain. So I haven't ran for 5 weeks, which is doing me head in a little bit. Like,
Yeah, when you slipped on black ice, wasn't it?
yeah.
That's got to be a
No,
fucking horrible frustration. That is.
Oh, it's so frustrating. Like, because it's running to something I do every day, and most days is twice a day. So to not be doing it is really hard.
I bet it's hard for the mental aspect of it as well.
Yeah, because I think running for me, although I love competing and everything else, running part of it is just getting out and on my own. I think I need that time on my own all the time. Like,
Mate, I'm absolutely the same freaking way, whether it's training, whether it's walking the dog. The dog is about the only company I can tolerate for long periods of time like that, but also bloody audiobooks and podcasts. As I've gotten older, I have come to realize more and more my requirement for my me time is so important to me, and it makes me a better person around the people that I'm around. And at times, like initially, that can make you feel really guilty and really selfish and stuff like that. It's not. I always say to people, it's not about doing that time instead of somebody else. Like you yourself, you get up stupid early in the morning, same as me. It's about if you really want it, it's really important to you. Do it at a time that's not going to affect the rest of your family. But if you really want it, that's kind of the line. That's when you know if you're willing to commit that to yourself more than anything else.
yeah, and getting up that early in the morning is a big commitment, like, because you're sacrificing a little bit of sleep, but you're looking after your family as well because you're getting out early and it's not really affecting them because they're still in bed.
I also think of it just like a general block of time, like something you could shift up and down like a slider, like the old abacuses and stuff like that. If I say to myself,
Yeah,
I need an 8-hour block and I'm going to get up at 5 or 4:30, well, that means I need to be in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. And actually, that's the bit that some people struggle with, depending on the age of their kids and what they want to do with their partner in the evening. They can struggle with that. But me and my partner, we put our daughter to bed and then we fucking go straight to bed ourselves. Now, I know that's an elitist view, or people are like, oh, well, that's easy for you. But it's where you place that importance. And like some people like to sit up with their partner and watch TV in the evenings, which is absolutely fine. But my personal argument is like, no, very few people are doing anything fucking productive past 9 p.m. at night. They're doing jack shit. They're just watching crap.
Yeah. So what's the point in staying up and doing it? I agree with you because I think that's something I think about late in the evening sort of thing. I think, right, I want to get up at 5, and I wake up and like say, well, if I'm bed by 10:30, I'm asleep by 11. 6 hours is enough for me to get by.
Hmm.
So obviously, it's not great all the time, but when if I want to get up at 5 and get out for a run before I start shift at 7:30,
Yeah,
that's what you've got to do. Like,
100%. What I love is when I'm looking across the landscape of social media, which is where I tend to stalk a lot of people, it's incredible to see people like yourself and others in our kind of field, but also just kicking ass and taking names in their own passions as well. And a big part of this is trying to help people get a bit wider understanding of the people that are in the emergency services, because they tend to be a really eclectic bunch of little freaks, don't they? And I find there's some beautiful people out there.
yeah, definitely. I mean, the fire service and the emergency service in general, it's a strange place to be working. You've got a real wide range of characters in there.
That's kind of what makes it the one of the first favorite places for me, though. I think my role as like a watch commander is like protect the freaks, and I say that, and the people say, "Oh, it sounds really horrible." I say that in the loveliest, lovable, huggable term. It's like the watch culture wouldn't be as good as it is if we didn't have those quirky, beautiful, crazy people, because they're the ones that come up with the good ideas. They're the ones that have that assertiveness, have that sort of aptitude for the type of work that we do. I think if our people tried to exist in a corporate world, they would really struggle. And I think just with their mental health and everything in general, they're like kinesthetic people, aren't they? They're doers, they're thinkers, they are,
Yeah,
they're people that like to do shit with their hands and have a different day every day.
yeah. Always wanting to do something. I mean, it was just something. I spoke to another one of the lads at work, and I said, they've got some big characters retiring in the next sort of
Oh,
year
mate,
to
all the time now.
yeah. And it's like once them characters are gone, no disrespect to some of the new people coming through, but them characters don't get replaced. You
No.
know, these new people coming through, they're nothing like them. So yeah, it's a strange time at the minute with a lot of people going and a lot of fresh people coming through. But yeah, it remains to be seen how we get on with them.
I'm optimistic. I think I always say like safe spaces is where culture grows. If you're in a place where you're brand new and you're a little bit scared, and someone on your way into this place, someone has rammed EDI and freaking fairness and don't get sacked and here's a social media policy and all that sort of shit, it can be a little bit scary and you can be a little bit reluctant to kind of let your hair down and, show your true personality. But I don't believe that these people are void of personality. I think they just don't have some of the same life experiences that, like you say, the boys and girls that we've been working with for 20 years perhaps have, because you're one of the old hands on the watch now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've been in 17 years now, and I started off and I was one of the youngest on the station, and now I'm sort of, by our crew manager, I've most experience on the watch. So yeah, it's really strange to go from being so young, and it seems to have gone so quickly.
Yeah, you're looking around the truck or you're looking around the parade line, and you're like, fucking hell, I've got, 3 or 4 times more
Yeah,
experience. Or, people are looking to me and I'm being assigned as a mentor. And I know you're sort of going through the promotion process now. But before we get too much further, can you just cycle us back? Kind of when did you join the emergency services? Give us a little bit about where you're from, and then we'll kind of go into it.
yeah. So I was born and bred on the west coast up in Cumbria. Joined I applied initially for the fire service in 2004 and never got through. Applied again in 2005 and got through for 2006. So I've been in since then. I've been a firefighter for all of that time until last couple of years. I've done acting up, and I've decided last year I went through the promotion process and was unsuccessful, and this year I've gone through and I've just got through to the interview stage again. So,
Congratulations, my
so
man.
yeah,
Why
yeah.
the
Well,
decision to try and push for it now?
um, I think I reached a point in my career where I want to be the one dictating and telling people, what happens rather than somebody telling me what I need to do.
Yeah, 100%. You kind of get to that point where it's not
Yeah,
like you think you can do it better, but you almost don't have an obligation, but you've got so much experience, wisdom, comfort in those sort of challenging situations to be able to give direction without being in that sphere of panic. Sometimes I see people at Oberlin a year or 2 years going for promotion. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I
yeah,
just feel like they haven't got a wide enough sort of holistic view of different incidents and operating under pressure. And so that's sometimes you see when like the new promoted person tends to accidentally micromanage the crew, and they do it out of like a lack of self-belief. They hide behind their own inadequacies. Sometimes that might sound really harsh, by like micromanaging people how to be a firefighter. And I always say to them, I'm like, look, if you weren't there, it'd probably be absolutely fucking fine. They'd probably do a great job if you just stayed on the truck. So your job is not to tell them how to set in hydrants and run out jets and all this sort of shit. You are just the gentle hand on the tiller. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people coming through now who's, and I've got nothing against this. Like, if you want to go for promotion pretty early, that's fine. I didn't in beginning of my service, and I think that was because I was working with a lot of lads and lasses who had so much more experience. I felt as though it wasn't my time to step up at that point.
Okay.
Whereas now I'm getting people, or there's people service wide that haven't had so much experience, and they're already stepping up to crew managers, watch managers, and I feel as though I want to be in charge and giving the sort of orders, and rather than being in charge of me.
Yeah, 100%, my friend. You were not recently, but well, you recently got married, but then you also became a dad in like the last 10 years. You had your son as well 2 years ago. How has that kind of changed anything, or has it changed your perspectives on like how you come across to other people? Or because I always think that's a new chapter in life and it makes you kind of reframe things.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter's 9 year old now, and I had my daughter since sort of when, I wouldn't say the height of my running, because I don't like to say it's quite over yet, but in 2013, that was when I had my daughter, and I had some of my biggest wins in running, and most success. And having my daughter back then, I sort of managed and juggled training, work, and looking after her pretty good. But it's only when my son's come along a couple of years ago that I've found a big difference, because obviously my daughter was growing up, sort of 9 year old. She was going to school, so I had that time to myself through the day, and then I find myself back at the start almost again. I've got Joy. I've got to drop Isabel off, and then I've got Joy right through the day. So to fit training in, it's either early in the morning, late in the evening, and it becomes really difficult. But like we were talking about before, we'd looking at how much sleep we get and everything like that. You've got to try and program it in, and I believe that if you want something bad enough, you'll do it. So that's where it comes into getting up early in the mornings and sacrificing a little bit of sleep, and a lot of self-discipline.
So your level, I know we've kind of skimming around it there. We haven't really gone into it yet. Is like people won't know this because I haven't got into it yet, but it's like your level of discipline. And when you say trying to fit training in, give us the elevator pitch. How would you describe what you do in an athletic capacity?
Um, in an athletic capacity, well, I'll rather than try and describe what I do, I'll give you this. This just comes a bit as normal to me. So last
Give me the
year,
CV. What you been doing?
what I've been doing. So last year I ran a race called Man v Horse. It's running in mid Wales, and so the kids had chicken pox. We had to cancel the holiday, which meant that it was moved, and I arrived back on the day of the race. So on the way back from Tenerife, our flights were cancelled and we had to get a later flight, which meant I was getting home even later, so we delayed. And I sat on the 4 hour flight with Joey on my lap, who didn't sleep the full flight, so I didn't get any sleep at all. We arrived back in Manchester at 5 o'clock. We delayed getting our bags, and then I had the decision to make that we'd come in 2 cars and prepared for this, but we had a decision to make that was I going to drive till mid Wales, which is a 3 hour drive, and run this race, or was I going to just drive home? And I decided to go. So bear in mind, I haven't had any sleep at this point for over 24 hours. So I drove the 3 hours to the race. Ate a bag of, I prepared a bag of porridge before we'd travel to the airport. So I couldn't get hold of any milk, so I filled it with water and ate a bag of porridge, which was cold. Pulled over the side of the road till Wales. Got there just in time to pick my number up. Ran the race, won the race, beat the horses, and then drove 5.5 hours home. And I think that's to me, like I'm not boasting or anything, but that would be a description of how I put some of my training. So most of the time it's early mornings, 5 o'clock. In the evening, sometimes I go out as late as 9:30, even when it's dark. But yeah, that's the commitment you've got to give if you want to be the best version of yourself.
That sort of training, though, that volume of training that's involved in runners. I've had a few really long distance runners on here. We had a gentleman who's ran around the UK raising money for military mental health. Effectively, he had a few of his comrades, I think 11 of his comrades, commit suicide, unfortunately, and he ran around the UK, which was something. I forget how many marathons it was, back to back, day after day. And then we had James Ball recently, who had done the Marathon des Sables, and the
Yeah.
volumes that are involved in some of these was just colossal. And it's the fucking time that you must have to commit to this. What does a standard training week look like for you? So would you describe yourself as a fell runner, a marathon runner? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably, yeah, ultra marathon runner, but I run anything from 5K on the roads till the most I've went is like 62 mile. But yeah, the training has obviously changed a lot in these last couple of years. We've had various injuries and stuff, and just recently I've had 5 weeks off running just because of a injury. But yeah, sometimes most weeks my mileage is over 100 miles a week. Sometimes it's sort of closer to 130 with a little bit of swimming in there as well. But yeah, it really does differ from week to week at the minute. But as soon as Joey goes to school, I'll be a bit more back to normal if you know what I mean.
How do you keep an app? So how do you keep an appetite for it, given the distances that you have to do? But also, like, you're quite a tall guy, aren't you? How tall are you?
6'3".
You're 6'3", so that's a lot of bone to be going through knees, ankles, hips. Do
Yeah,
you have any concerns about the impact on that? How's the body feeling? I mean, we spoke earlier, like you say, about slipping on the back ice, and I know you rolled your ankle as well recently. How do you continue to justify putting in these kind of distance? Because I always say with lots of exercise, there's no solutions, only trade-offs. So, okay, I've spent most of my time lifting
yeah,
stupid weights. And as a result, I've had prolapse disc in my back, I've torn pecs, I've snapped tendons in my knee. So, there's no right or wrong. But I think if you want to be very good at anything, you almost have to have an element of an unhealthy obsession to it. And that itself comes with a cost.
yeah, definitely. I mean, running to me is exactly what you've just said. It's an unhealthy obsession, and I admit I am obsessed. It's like it's almost like a drug. It's something I need every day for more than just one reason. But yeah, when it comes to self maintenance, I think um, a good thing as a firefighter, what can help us is the gym at work,
Mm-hmm.
and I think keeping everything else strong around those key points like your knees and your ankles and stuff. So keeping everything else strong around it helps it keep it strong altogether.
Because you do a lot of
So
core work as well, don't you?
yeah, yeah. So a lot of core work, a lot of strength work, and I think this is really important part of just keeping a strong body. Seeing the physio regular and stuff like that is just kind of keep ironing them knots out and keep any tight spots at bay sort of thing. But yeah, you've still got to do a lot of self maintenance. But
Mhm.
I mean, with regards to thinking about the impact of later in life, it's I live for now, not for in 20 years.
Yeah.
Do what you can now. Just enjoy it.
I always think with anything in your body, you're kind of strategically managing the decline. And I don't say that as in pessimistically, but I'm like, when you get older, I feel like you just have to train smarter. Training harder is kind
Yeah,
of a bit of a trick. It's like a bit of a young man's game. You can fuck up and, do all sorts of stupid shit and overtrain or anything like that and just kind of get away from it. You can just apply physical horsepower to something and make it through certain things. But as you get older, you really do need to just train smart. It doesn't mean train less. It doesn't mean take your foot off the gas. It just means be more strategic in my mind about what you're doing.
yeah, I agree with you. And that's something I definitely have learned as I'm getting older. I think training smarter is the key rather than, I was just, when I was younger, like I was the sort of lad what would knock miles and miles and miles in and then go on the bike for another couple hours at the end.
Hmm.
But I feel as though right now my body doesn't need that, and I've built up that much stamina over the years that I don't need to train really, really hard. I just need to train hard and smart.
How often do you have rest days?
Well, I've probably had more rest days in these last sort of 6 weeks than I have in
Yeah, I
5 years.
appreciate that. I know you're in a kind of a special moment at the minute.
Yeah, I don't really do rest days. I think active recovery is just as good as anything. So even if it's just a swim for 30 minutes, or if I had a really hard run the day before, the next day I'll maybe do like just an hour really easy.
Hmm.
But yeah, like you say, it's sometimes it's not always about getting out running. It's about just getting out and being out in the fresh air.
Yeah. Rest days for me or active recovery are swim or bike because it's very
Yeah,
low load. It's very easy on the body, but it still allows me, like I was saying, like, I think it's a bit of a trick when we talk about discipline because the discipline, ironically, for me, would be trying to not do it. I have always used exercise as a bit of a mental crutch. And like I need to lean on it on a daily basis. Otherwise, I have a bit of a wobble.
yeah, I would agree totally with you there. And yeah, for me, it definitely is something I need to do every day. It's and I try not like if I don't get out of the house for whatever reason, you can tell, and I try not to let it affect us that much, but I honestly can't help it. It's just it's part, yeah, it's part of what makes me.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to ask you about music. Do you run to music?
No, I don't, and I never have. No,
Why? You know what? So many people say that when I speak to some long since running. Some justify it because apparently in the rules you're not allowed to do it when you're racing because it's like you might
yeah,
fucking hurt yourself or something like that. But then when I think about having to run for hours on end with nothing but my own thoughts, I would personally find that really difficult. And I don't know if that's just a mental weakness of mine. Have you always done that? Because you've been running since you were like 15, right?
yeah, that's right. I mean, don't get us wrong. I love music. I listen to music all the time. But when it comes to running, when I go running, even though I'm training hard sometimes, and when I'm training hard, I only think about the effort, or that's all that's going through my mind. But when I'm running easy and I'm out for like maybe 2 or 3 hours, I put a lot to sleep during that 3 hour run.
Really?
I think about anything from food, what I'm having for my tea, what I'm doing tomorrow, what tomorrow's run is, what time I've got to be back for the kids, and I've got everything down to the fine art. So, most like I live out on the west coast of Cumbria, and I'm sort of about 22 minutes from Keswick. So
Okay.
I know
Keswick's
exactly.
beautiful.
Well, it's an amazing place to live, and I've got it down to like I know how far it takes us exactly to get to certain places, and my getting out running is when I am going out running. Because I've got times to meet, like get back to pick the kids up or get back and pick shopping up and then get the kids up. I know exactly how much time, so it's all about time management. I think when I'm running hard, there's nothing more than I like that I've got my own thoughts in my head. And if I'm running hard, all I'm thinking is that effort. And I think that's, when you finish the run and you feel absolutely knackered,
Hmm.
that's something what you can't get from anywhere else.
You get that runner's high, don't you? You get that dump of all the endorphins and dopamine, and that's chemically that's the best way to get those natural drugs that other people try and seek through other means or other drugs or caffeine or whatever it might be, because the way to naturally get them sits on the other side of a shitload of effort is the problem.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think if I listen to music when I was out running, I don't think I'll get the same experience. So, that's the reason why I never have. And plus, I know this is a bit cliche, like, but I just love the sound of nothing as well up on the fells.
Mm.
You might got the birds and the stuff and the wind or whatever's, but apart from that, you've got nothing else, which is like, it's just so nice to be away from everything.
I know what you're saying. Sometimes like when you look at the clock, but you've not actually looked at it and you don't realize what the time, like you
Yeah,
look at it and then someone goes, "What's the time?" You've looked three times, but you haven't really seen it. And I think about that when I'm out in the countryside and stuff. You're looking around at stuff, but you're not really looking. And then when you
yeah,
finally look properly, you go, "Fuck me, that's beautiful."
yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
wow. And you almost have like that out of body. Well, it's almost like the film. comes away from your eyes, that like you finally scrape away the shit of general society and go, shit, this stuff's in front of me every day. And you go,
Yeah,
wow, this is really beautiful. And there's almost a sereneness to having those moments of presence. And when you're really struggling with stuff, it does allow you to shrink out all of the other mess, because you start to become more and more present, because you're required to, because you're putting in a tremendous amount of physical effort. It almost puts those theoretical blinkers on where you forget about work, social media, shit and piss and all that sort of stuff, and you are just present in the moment, because that it requires that level of focus, and that can be a really beautiful spot.
yeah, definitely. That's exactly it. I mean, just being away from, like you just said there, social media, work, and forgetting your thoughts. And really, when I go up on the fells or the mountains, I could be absolute anywhere, and
Yeah.
you've not got another thought except the next foot in front of you, the next step in front of you.
So talk to me, because some of the competitors that I've spoken with from a variety of sports, but certainly in running, some of them live in the city, and some of them, I actually spoke to a marathon runner that was out on the rigs and stuff like that. You do some training at work every now and again when you have to and when you're forced to get it in. So talk to me about treadmill versus road running. Is there a tremendous amount of difference, even like the stability and the resiliency that you develop in your ankles? Because when you then get out there onto the fells, or like this man versus horse stuff, I would imagine if you did just narrow yourself down to one training method, you could be exposed heavily to some of those challenges.
Yeah, you could be. I mean, using a treadmill at work it is what it is. It's being able to get a run in while you're in your either lunch break or your allocated gym time,
Yeah.
and for that reason, that is an absolutely great tool to have at work. Not a lot of people get that opportunity where they've got to stay at work and they could go for a run. And so I think we're really lucky in that way. So yeah, I use it as a training tool. I don't spend a massive amount of time on there. I try and do, if I do go on it, I try and key in like a key session. So whether it's like a hill rep session, or maybe say in the time what I've got, I can do 5 times 1 mile, at a good pace. And
Mm.
our treadmill at work goes up to like 4 minutes 12
Jesus.
for a mile. Yeah, which is pretty quick. So it's a good treadmill. And
Yeah.
I used it ever since I joined. And like I say, it is a great tool for not being able to get outside.
Isn't there a
But
difference between the fact that you don't have to kind of pace yourself, or like the pacing is kind of done for you, isn't it? I find it easier to run a treadmill. Now, I don't run anywhere near as much as you, but it's like I'm forced to keep going. Whereas when I'm out running normally, every third step, my mind is like, dude, just fucking stop. Just
yeah,
fucking stop. And it's harder for me to keep a pace. Like I use Strava, and every half a mile it clocks me. And I can range between 8 and 11 minutes, obviously depending on the terrain, but also I just don't think I'm as good at pacing myself. Whereas I know I won't develop that skill if I just go on a treadmill all the time. But I feel like when I am on a treadmill, the kind of discipline is taken away from me a little bit, because there's a cost to not keeping up. You can fucking fall off.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in that, it is easy on a treadmill because you set the pace and you go at that pace for a certain distance. But I mean, even you know, them runs on the treadmills are really boring, like because you run the same pace, and
Yeah.
quite often if you change the incline now and again, every 3 minutes or something, it just chops you up a little bit and allows you sort of your mind not to just drift into that monotonous sort of
Yeah.
40 minutes of same paced running.
Hmm.
But yeah, the treadmill is a great tool, but it obviously it doesn't replace what you get out on the trails or the fells, and you couldn't use it as um, one tool for training for that full marathon. Or
Hmm.
but yeah, it is a good tool to have in your pocket if you're at work.
Now, you spoke about what it's like going into the races, but after you've done some of these big, 60 milers or something like that, how do you manage recovery after something like that? Have you got any sort of tips or things you've picked up over time, or things that work for you around ice bath, saunas, stretching, compression? Do you have anything that is your kind of go-to? And is there any kind of like bullshit myths that you hear thrown around that actually don't work?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Pete. Like, when it comes to nutrition and recovery, anything like that, there's probably loads of stuff I could do to help my recovery.
Really?
But yeah, but I don't do naff all. Like, I mean, I run the race. The next day, I'm probably out running, doing about an hour's run or something, just steadied away. You know, I do like to go on the physio, but I don't know if I like going on the physio just because I like getting massaged or because it's for recovery. Yeah. So,
Well,
but
the
yeah, I
argument
honestly,
is if it feels good, then it has a tangible benefit as well, right? Even if it is
oh yeah,
partially placebo, if it makes you feel better. Like I do assisted stretching sometimes with people, and I have people, I could stretch by myself, but it's nice to have someone else kind of manipulate your body,
oh
and
yeah, yeah.
it's really fucking good.
Yeah, and I mean, if I had the opportunity to do stuff like that, if Joan from down bottom of the street come along and said, "Listen, Ricky, do you want us to help you stretch?" and she did it all for us, I'd say, "Knock yourself out."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I haven't got time to stretch. If I'm gonna go out, I want to go for a run and use that time wisely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't got time for recovery really. Like I just maybe have a milkshake straight after or something and make sure I'm hydrated. That's probably, in my opinion, that's probably one of the biggest ones you can do. Like just get rehydrated pretty quick.
What does hydration and nutrition look like through some of these longer races? Because I mean, how long would a 60-mile race take?
So yeah, I mean, yeah, a 60-mile race, depending, can take anything from like 7 till 12 hours, depending on the terrain or the elevation.
Do you bother
Uh,
taking anything on during that, or
yeah, so sometimes it's like over the years, I've not absolutely got stuck on anything to say, right, that's my go-to during a race. And I found for a long time I was using really high sugar gels and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and they just weren't working for me. But I couldn't find anything else. But more recently, I've used some other stuff with less sugar in that, and I find that there's a drink company called Tailwind Nutrition, and I
Mhm.
find it's really easy on the stomach. You can make your drinks up beforehand with this powder, and if you drink them often, you don't need to really eat food because you get enough calories and everything else from that one drink. So apart from bananas and taking that, I haven't really used a lot else in the last couple of years.
No, whenever I've done big mountain stuff over a couple of days or something like that, I tend to just put different combinations of electrolytes or salts or, like you say, almost nutritional supplement powders into my camel pack. And
Right.
over the space of a couple of days, you actually can get away with not eating much at all. You don't lose a massive amount of energy as long as your hydration stays up and you get in those electrolytes and the key nutrients back. You'll lose a little bit of weight. But like you say, the counter for me is if I try and have sugary stuff or even just most food, to be honest, because just from a physiological perspective, it pulls all the blood, I don't pull all the blood, but it pulls a percentage of blood away to then start digesting this thing. And I end up just feeling
Yeah,
sick.
yeah. Too much sugary stuff, and that's been the same for me. And I just hasn't agreed with my stomach, and you you get a lot of sugar spikes and stuff, which doesn't help during a 60-mile race.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to ask you about footwear because you've had you're sponsored by Solomon, aren't you? You've even had like a 15-year deal with them now.
Yeah. I've been with them for a long time now.
How did that come about, and how does that sort of thing work, and the support, and have you found it beneficial?
Yeah, so I'd heard of the Salomon UK team back when I was racing as a teenager, and I always thought, oh, I wonder how you get onto that team, and nobody really knew how you get on the team. But anyways, I got to the point where I'd raced a lot of what I wanted to race in the UK, and this was probably about 2007. So yeah, I was 22 year old, and I wanted to try a couple of races abroad. So I travelled to Italy to do a sky race, and I travelled to Andorra within a couple of months of each other. And on the back of them, because I had a half decent race result, the team manager for Salomon UK got in touch with us and said, "Listen, do you want to join the team? We've seen your results and would like to sort of sign you up." And I was like, "Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant." I can remember I was still at my mum's house then, and I got a phone call out of the blue, and I was like, I couldn't believe it really, because to be picked up by a team like that is just great, just for the amount of kit and stuff you get.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I got signed up with them in 2008, and 2009 was probably one of my first big years I had with the team. I finished third in the Skyrunning World Series, and I won a big race called Zagama in Spain, which is a
What does
real
that involve?
massive event. So Zagama it's a marathon of the mountains, and it's got, off the top of my head, it's something like 2,500 meters of ascent. But it's probably, so you've got the Tour de France cycle race, and it's probably the closest you'll get to the Tour de France in a mountain race. I mean, you've got this little village in Spain. Everybody absolutely comes out to support the race, whether they're volunteering or doing the results or just supporting on the mountain. And you've literally, I'm not joking, have a look after this. It's called, if you type in Zagama mountain race, it'll come up, and there's literally thousands of people out on the route. And I turned up to this a bit of a dark horse, and I ended up winning it, which was like an absolute massive win for me. Like,
Jesus.
and then I think I won 1,500 euros.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I suppose you're
Yeah,
racing at that level. There's cash prizes now.
yeah, it is. And I won 1,500 euros. It's a lot more now. Like,
Yeah.
it's had a bigger pay rise than firefighters have. So
Yeah.
yeah, I remember after the race, I must have been absolutely wasted, because I bought 10 bottles of champagne, and I think they were like €100 a bottle, and they brought them all out and popped them all, and that, and everybody was absolutely going mental, and they never charged us for it. They said it's on the house. So yeah, it was the party was as good as the race, anyways.
Yeah, I was just reading on it now. So the event roams over one side of the Sierra of A's Corey, to 5,200 meters in length, a positive height gain of 1,015 meters, 250
Yeah,
runners.
yeah.
250 runners take part. That's a big fucking. How big are some of these cohorts when you're running that sort of stuff? And there are some big cash prizes for it as well.
Yeah, I mean, they have to limit the number of who get entries to the Zagama one, because they have like a ballot where you've got to register to
I was
get an
going to say, do
entry
you
and
have to have
stuff.
like a bit of a CV? Like when I've been listening to like all the Goggins crap and all that sort of stuff, you can't enter some of these
Yeah,
races unless you're at least sort of you've qualified yourself as a legitimate runner. They don't want some fucking idiot like me turning up just saying, "Oh yeah, I think I can do this," and comping out after 5 fucking miles.
yeah. You could enter via the ballot, and if you get picked, you get entry. But yeah, they do reserve a number of places for elite runners,
Some of these are
just so they
climbing
get
on assisted
a good race.
lines. The inclines on some of this, they've actually got like guidelines lined up because some of the inclines on this. Do you run with poles? Do you ever use that? Because I see some of these races going on the poles because the incline's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't use the poles, but I mean, yeah, it's absolute unbelievable race. But there's races all over the world. Like there's one in Borneo in Malaysia, and that's it's you run from like 2,000 meters up to 2,300 meters, and
Do you
it's
train
super.
differently for something like that? Because looking at it, I believe that would require a lot more quad strength than just endurance. Do you know what I mean? I feel like people that would just
Yeah,
train for a standard marathon, like in the Olympics on a track, would not fare as well in here because some of these guys and girls look like they've got some strong quad drive in them.
yeah. I mean, obviously keeping strong for stuff like that is important, having strong quads, but it, the hard thing is coming downhill, because people
Yeah.
aren't used to it. If you run on the flat, you're not used to running down, and usually it's the coming down what absolutely knackers your legs. So
Yeah.
obviously in
It's
a
that
race
knee
like that,
over the front of the toe, isn't it?
yeah,
The patella tendon just starts screaming at me when I do it.
yeah, and well, that's it. And when you're doing it multiple times, so if you're climbing up 1,000 meters and down 1,000, then back up 1,000 and down 1,000, that can have a massive detrimental effect on how you perform. So
Mm.
if you're not used to doing it, or you're not training that way, your race could be over within that first descent.
That is just crazy. Some of the stuff on these guys and girls is just unbelievable. Have you got like a hit list of some of the races that you're still yet to do? Because you're still a very young guy in the grand scheme of things. Because I think with endurance runners, they tend to be able to, or runners that compete in your kind of sector, there's kind of a longer career than like explosive, like a basketball player or a powerlifter or something like that. Have you got a hit list of things you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my last few years have been dictated. more because of family commitments. But yeah, I mean, I used to race abroad, you know, maybe sort of 7, 8, 9 times a year. And but in the last few years, and with COVID here, and I haven't really been abroad to race much apart from last year, representing Great Britain at the European Championships. But yeah, these still a lot of races I want to go back to, and there's still a lot that I want to have a go at. There's some in the UK which I want to have a go at as well, but it's just getting around to them and getting the
It's
time.
time, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
you got to strike that balance of healthy selfishness, but then also, like you say, when you see some of the people that haven't got families, because families bring a tremendous amount of benefit and fulfillment and a different sort of happiness, but still, there's that aspect of, oh, I'm running out of time to do these things that I want to do. I think that's what I struggle with most when I have this laundry list of things in my head that I kind of want to do in my life.
yeah. I mean, with having a family, you can't just take all the time, and
No.
a lot. Obviously, being a runner is a really selfish sport because everything you do is to benefit yourself, and it doesn't really owe to the family because you any training you need to do is time away, and you need somebody to watch the kids, just stuff like that. And I think that's why I've sort of knocked it back over these last couple of years because I've got to be realistic, and I do want to spend time with my kids, and
Yeah.
I don't want to be that selfish. But like we were just talking about before, that's where it comes in training smarter, not harder.
Mhm.
So there will be a time when I'll do more training and then turn up and go and do these races. But just for the minute, I'm quite happy where I'm at.
There's
And
also a
plus, I don't
balance,
like.
though, isn't there? Sorry, about like kids learn with their eyes, not just their ears. So I always think when people
Yeah,
talk to their kids about, oh, go and pursue the thing, live your fucking dreams, go for that. And I believe in all of that as well. But when I stand in the playground, sometimes I listen to people saying, try your hardest, do your best. I'm like, the kid is learning with their eyes as well. So they're also looking back at mom and dad and going, well, are you trying your hardest? Are you doing your best? They're well within their rights, really, to say something like that. And the demonstration that kids learn, your life is the best example, not your life, but well, yours is an example, but that's the
yeah,
best example that we give to our kids. It's how you're living, because it's not just telling them what to do. They see what you're doing, and when they get old enough, which your eldest will be getting there in the next couple of years, and they should ask. I always talk to at the dinner table with my daughter about what I'm scared of, or what I'm excited about, or what I'm trying to do, or if I miss a promotion at work, or if I miss a thing, I talk to her about it. And she's like, sometimes she'll get upset, and she'll be like, "Oh, Daddy, why didn't you get it?" Or don't they like you, or something like that. So I'm like, baby, that's just the cost sometimes of going for stuff. You've got to put yourself out there. You've
yeah,
got to be willing to fail. But I feel like that muscle gets a little bit weaker as we get older. Like we worry about losing face, we worry about looking stupid, we worry about that failure and what it means to fail as an adult. But kids do it all the fucking time. You send them to a scary club on a
yeah,
Saturday. That's the first time they've been there. They move up in school. They meet a new friend. They're doing scary shit all the time. And
yeah,
that muscle can weaken if you're not, like yourself, putting yourself out there every day to, I'm going to go and do this difficult thing and it might hurt. And daddy's got an injury or daddy didn't get this job at work. But what's the alternative? Just fucking preaching and
yeah,
not actually doing.
yeah, exactly. And I think being learning to fail is part of life, and I think I have real trouble with and that's maybe why I don't turn up to races as often when I don't think I'm fully fit. But yeah, there's been times where I've struggled and I've not won. I've failed and I've been nowhere. But that's obviously when we learn the most, or certainly I have. Anyways, I've learned
100%.
my weaknesses and I know how to adapt.
I wanted to ask you about footwear for a second. Now, I know obviously Salomon's a big partner of yours, but did you ever actually go and do the whole like get your gait measured and the balance and the where your weight is in the feet? Is that an essential thing for runners to do, or is that a nice to? Because I've been to some of them shops and they're pretty Gucci, and like I feel like it made a difference, but I don't know if I'm just telling myself that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it done before, and I've had custom shoes made. And to be honest, my feet. Part of the reason I think I've been with Salmon for so long is they fit my feet so well. So I've had no issues. So I can wear a pair of shoes straight out of the box, and they'll be fine. I don't get blisters or anything, which I'm really lucky with. But yeah, I mean, if you have got the money and you can go and get a sort of custom pair of shoes fitted, I would say go for it, especially if you're having a lot of issues with off the shelf shoes. But if you find that you're getting along with shoes fine, I wouldn't waste some money.
I wanted to take you just for a second back into our sort of professional life because I appreciate we've skimmed away from the fire service, which is totally cool as well. Like, but why have you stayed doing it this long? Sometimes you see people come into the job 5 or 10 years. What is it about the job that you do that you enjoy, both from like the life balance or the purpose of the job or like experiences you've had? Why do you still do it?
I mean, I'm not one for chasing money. If I get paid a amount, I know how much I get paid, and I live within that, and I don't want anything more. I'm happy with what I've got. So that is one reason why I'm still in the fire service, and it has a really good work-life balance.
Mm,
So I live 8 miles away from my station, and I can either bike or run in, or I can drive to the fells in the morning, run on the fells, and then go to work.
yeah.
And it's just a perfect combination, really. You get 2 days, 2 nights, 4 days off, and it's great for childcare. The balance is really good. It does, apart from the kids, but it does allow me to get my training in as much as I want. But yeah, it's a great job. I love working in the community. I work with a great bunch of people,
Yeah.
and I don't feel as though I'll get any of that anywhere else.
No, it's a real unique balance being in a job like that. And like you just said there, I think the work-life balance is one of the best parts about it. People feel differently from when they've done 9 to 5s since the day they started, but having that time during the day, especially when your children are young or even when they've grown up, having those days to yourself allows you to get into those other passions that ordinarily I think most people are just never going to be able to do because they get to their weekends and they're just counting down the hours until Monday hits again. Whereas we get that luxury. And obviously, like I say, it comes at a cost because no, I always say people don't join the emergency
Yeah,
services for the income. They join it for the outcome. They join it for the things they get out of it. They get it for the space and also what they do in the community and the incidents they get to attend. They get a real tangible benefit from seeing the difference they can make in a very short period of time when you're turning up to an incident, a house fire, a car crash, whatever it might be. You're kind of fulfillment spectrum is shorter because you get an immediate return on what you've just done. You go somewhere, you do something, and you can see the obvious difference that you've just made.
yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask you before we sort of round it up for people that are trying to get a little bit fitter, trying to get a little bit healthier, we'll see couch to 5Ks and all that sort of stuff. Is there anything that you think would be appropriate for somebody that was trying to get a little bit fitter or wanted to start doing running? Because it's a long chasm to be looking at someone that's doing 60-mile runs and thinking, oh, well, it's fucking fine for Ricky to say that. I'm sure he'd be doing it all of his life. But for somebody that, especially firefighters, mate, we're getting into the job now and we're having to stay till we're 50, 55 years of age. So having a good engine, passing that annual fitness test, you've got to acknowledge that there's got to be a little bit of cardio. You've got to be putting something in there.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, it's like obviously I want to do it and I want to get out every day, and that I am really self motivated, and I understand that not everybody's like that. And so I think one of the biggest things is probably joining a club, or having a group of friends where they go out regularly. Because
Having
if
that
you,
social
if you tend to
accountability.
make it,
Yeah.
yeah, so you tend to make a day, you trying to stick to it, don't you? So I know that our club, they've got a day through the week what they meet, and most of them get out during the week. And yeah, and if nobody was planning to meet, it's really difficult, especially during winter, the dark nights, and when it's wet and really cold. You don't want to go. You don't want to go out, and I'm going to go out training tonight on the bike, but I don't really want to go out. It's dark, it's cold, and it's wet, and but if you arrange to meet somebody, you're gonna do it. So that's one of the biggest tips, I think, and I've always said that right from the beginning for anybody who's looking for that motivation to get out.
Yeah, find that accountability, whether that's somebody you meet up with
Yeah,
online or whether that's somebody you meet up with in your community, hold yourself accountable to somebody else. And also, like I say, like share it with the people on your station, share it with the people on your watch. I'm going to do 2 runs this week. And they'll fucking ask you,
yeah,
how did you
yeah,
get on? And you'll just feel like an
yeah,
absolute dick if you're like, well, I didn't actually go. Do you know what I mean? So there's kind of that aspect
yeah,
to it.
yeah, and it's same at work as well. Like we've got a good sort of healthy fit watch, and but I mean I'll go in the gym probably every day I can, and I say that time is I'd rather be doing something at lunchtime than just sitting about. You know, I have something to eat and then I'll go in the gym, or go in the gym and have something to eat. But I'll go in every day, and if I go in, somebody else tends to come in with us, even though they didn't want to.
Yeah.
But they've just got that company in the gym. That's the thing.
That's where I think it can be kind of a trick as well, like I say, because it's the value of the people we place ourselves around as well. Because if you do work in an office and you've got to really go out your way and you're the only person that's doing it, it can be really fucking hard. Do you know what I mean? There's more barriers in place to do that. But people have got to leverage those opportunities. You know, that value of association, making it part of your conversation, making it part of your daily routine. We forget how much better we've got it versus the police and the NHS and stuff like that. They don't have, you know, gyms on stations and all of that. The game really is set up to win.
Yeah.
But if you can put yourself around people that are in that similar mindset, it really is just a performance enhancer, I think.
No, yeah, without a doubt. And, you know, you like you say, you be around people like that, you tend to become that person.
That's it. 100%. Thank you, my man. I'm going to be super respectful of your time because I know you've still got to get out there in the dark. I'm lucky. I did my training session in the morning. It was 5 miles on the bike, a bit of back and biceps, and then jumping in the ice bath. So I'll let you get out there into the beautiful, miserable darkness, and careful with that ankle. And I know you had a bit of a chest infection as well. So I know you'd be training smarter rather than harder and getting back on it.
Cheers, mate.
And I'll speak to you soon.
No worries. Cheers, Pete. See you, mate.
Firefighters podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continue, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.